Finally, after waiting what seems like years for the upcoming Ascent Infinite Realm MMORPG, we have a full 100% confirmed release date. Well, I mean, yes, a release date, but a release date for the South Korean version of the upcoming Elyon MMO. But, I mean, for those of you that were not aware at the time, when Air was slated for release initially, there was supposed to be a global release that would happen shortly after, with both North America and Europe having their own planned versions of the game within, I believe at the time, was probably going to be mere months of the South Korean launch. Now, today I plan to cover not only what we have to look forward to with regards to the upcoming MMO, but what changes were made to the game ever since it was overhauled, an expansion on the release date information, the global release date, and more. So I urge you guys to take a few minutes here and sit down, as this is going to be a bit of a longer video and is going to encompass all of the questions that I hope you guys have pertaining to the game. Elyon is an upcoming steampunk fantasy MMORPG. It was originally developed as Ascent Infinite Realm, but upon entering their test phase, they found that the player base was rather unhappy with the iteration of the game that was present. Mrs. Stix and I played both during the South Korean and the Thai test phases and found that while the game looked great graphically, not only were there severe performance issues, as this is built on Unreal Engine 3, but the game was just so clunky and empty. Ascent Infinite Realm was initially a very heavily steampunk-influenced tab target MMO that had a very large emphasis on flight, aerial exploration, aerial combat. Elyon, however, is more of your traditional fantasy-themed MMO that has action combat and takes place predominantly on the ground. It's a complete overhaul of almost the entire game that went from a beautiful niche title to something a little more generic, which doesn't make it inherently bad, it just makes it a little bit more basic. Ascent Infinite Realm was initially free to play, meaning that there was no recurring subscription fees, there was no need to purchase the game before you can play it. The developers, however, have confirmed recently that Elyon is actually going to be a buy-to-play MMO now. This means that while there will be no recurring subscription fees, you will need to go ahead and purchase a game to be able to play it. As this is a South Korean MMO, you can be sure that there is going to be a cash shop present, and the cash shop in question will no doubt feature items that South Korean MMOs are known for. Now, I'm not going to go out on my way to claim that they're going to be pay to win here, but I would not put it past them. Kakao are going to be publishing Elyon outside of South Korea, and Kakao's other big MMO does happen to be Black Desert Online, so you can use Black Desert Online as reference for how Elyon's business model will likely end up. Like their other MMO Terra, content updates, DLC, and expansions will likely all be free to play. Additionally, there are Founders Packs available for players that have some spare cash that they want to just go ahead and throw away. As noted earlier, Ascent Infinite Realm was initially a tab target MMORPG. You had to either click your enemies individually or cycle through them with your tab key. Abilities were slow, combat overall was very unintuitive and very non-reactive. Elyon, however, is much different. While the classes are the same, they all play very differently to how they did back when Mrs. Stix and I played the game. The combat now requires no active target, providing players with the ability to freely aim all of their skills, requiring a little more forethought, a little more understanding of your enemies. Skills overall look and feel better. Being more actively engaged, having more to do definitely makes the game feel better. You know, more alive, more interactive. But playing an MMO in 2021 built using Unreal Engine 3 still leaves it feeling clunky, especially with the performance issues. I mean, just take Terra as a perfect example of how this game is going to play. Currently, there are 5 classes available to play: the Mystic, the Assassin, the Sorceress, the Gunslinger, and the Warlord. During the test phase for Air, I played as the Sorceress, while Mrs. Stix played as the Mystic, and honestly, they were about what you'd expect out of the classes. The dev team haven't expressed any interest in developing additional classes beyond the base 5 classes to play. They never explicitly stated that they wouldn't be, more so that it's just a topic they haven't really even touched at this moment. Considering Terra had various additional classes added over the course of its life, you can bet that they have plans to introduce new classes sometime in the future. Races, though, unconfirmed, but incredibly unlikely. This is a South Korean MMO. Come on, man. You know that above and beyond anything else, South Korean MMOs have fantastic character customization options. Now, I'm uncertain of whether or not the creator tool had additional options added to it over the course of its overhaul, but back when it went under the Air title, you could craft truly beautiful characters. You had a lot of freedom with each character having their own base models and features to alter so no class looked alike. There are going to be outfits available in game. I'm not sure whether they will be obtainable via in-game means or whether you'll be required to purchase them via the cash shop, but they are going to need to make their money, so they're likely to be cash shop exclusives. Yeah. Elyon is a beautiful MMORPG. Initially, the game was going to take part largely in the sky. We were going to have enormous airships, large archipelagos to drift between, and a truly large world packed with regions to explore, conquer, and engage other players in. Now, with the majority of the game being grounded, we still will, granted, have access to a large world, but we won't have the same means with which to go about exploring it, nor will we have the same number of aerial locales. Regardless, Elyon has a large open world that you're going to be able to run around and explore. There's a lot to see, there's a lot to do. The game isn't instanced at all, meaning that you get to explore all of this with other players. While everything about the game is gorgeous though, I can't help but feel as though this game still ends up looking and feeling like just another generic Korean game. Like, you guys can see this too, right? Black Desert Online, Arcade, Astelia, now Elyon. They all just have this weird, like, similarity, this weird look and feel about them. And the fact that this is actually built on Unreal Engine 3 definitely imposes certain limitations, both on what you can see and what you can actively do. Currently, Elyon is expected to be a PC exclusive. However, if we take into consideration their previous MMO Terra, which has since gotten a console release, and the fact that Kakao, the publisher for Black Desert, has ported BDO over to console as well, while again, Elyon is going to launch as a PC exclusive, it's safe to assume a console port will likely be in the works at one point. This is a large-scale action MMO. These types of games do work well on consoles, so it would definitely be a missed opportunity to delay this for too long. Thankfully, we haven't heard anything about an Elyon mobile game yet. I hope we never do, but knowing these devs, it's only a matter of time whether Elyon is successful or not. There is. Back when the game was being marketed as Ascent Infinite Realm, PvP was a very large, very focal part of the game. Elyon, much like World of Warcraft or Ion or Rift or Wildstar, features a faction-based PvP system. There are two different factions that are at war with one another, having been in conflict for over 100 years. This is where the majority of the PvP comes into play. You choose one of two different factions and you get to participate in large-scale open-world realm versus realm skirmishes. I've actually seen videos of these battles and they look absolutely chaotic, which I'm gonna be real with you guys here, is what PvP should be. There are smaller scale PvP modes as well for players that aren't interested in the larger scale competitive group content. There's 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3 arena matches. There's an interesting free-for-all battlefield, kind of like a battle royale, I guess would be the closest thing I could compare this to. And then areas scattered around the world that are dedicated to PvPvE, allowing for open world PvP in those areas specifically. Thankfully, this is a fairly traditional MMORPG. Elyon features a fully fleshed out story that takes you on a trip around the world. It has a plethora of different dungeons that you can run, several of which I believe Mrs. Sticks and I actually did have the opportunity of participating in a while back when we played it. It also has raids with enormous raid bosses to fight, so you know there will be forms of competitive PvE and competitive PvP content, keeping players of all kinds and all interests well occupied. Again, it is a pretty damn traditional game. This both works in its favor and against it, since it'll feel familiar to fans of the genre, which means that it won't take much to acclimate to, but at the same time, since it does nothing new, it just won't really hold our attention for too long. Ascent Infinite Realm was supposed to launch back on December 13th, 2017. Yes, it has actually been almost 3 years since the game was supposed to be fully playable. Now, after all this time, we have an official confirmed release date. Elyon launches on December 10th, 2020 within South Korea. Yes, South Korea. I'm well aware that some of you are going to hear that news and instantly be turned off due to having to wait an exorbitant amount of time to be able to even log in and play the game. But as I noted earlier, Air was supposed to launch globally shortly after its South Korean release. Yes, it is. Kakao are going to be publishing Elyon within North America and Europe, the very same Kakao that published Black Desert Online as noted earlier. The question then is, when is Elyon actually coming out globally? Unfortunately, that is something that is going to require we wait a little longer to receive an answer for. We don't really know how South Korea is going to respond to this new overhauled Elyon, and if that reception is negative, you can bet that there will be additional delays as they attempt to remedy whatever issues players are having with the game. While we might speculate we could get the game in 2021 potentially, and honestly, I would love to be able to play Elyon next year, it would be just that, speculation, with no confirmed facts or even rumors backing it. Honestly, the easiest way to get into the South Korean version of Elyon is through a VPN. I personally use exit lag, and I know a lot of MMO content creators also use exit lag. It's just so easy, it isn't really all that cluttered, it has a really smooth, really clean UI, and it covers almost every MMO that I have wanted it to cover. I've used it to get around IP restrictions in Justice Online, Blue Protocol, and even back when Ascent Infinite Run was a thing. You will need a few more things to get into the game though, such as a South Korean social security number from what I recall, but those are easily obtained online. Wait, should this even be a question? Nobody is going to be able to fully run Elyon without FPS issues. Jokes aside though, or well, this isn't even really a joke, but the recommended requirements for the game are an i5 and a GTX 970. So with this in mind, I feel like my mother's laptop could probably run this on recommended settings, honestly. The system requirements for Elyon are actually kinda low, but I guarantee you, even if you meet this and go significantly beyond, you'll run into FPS issues. The Elyon team have expressed to the player base that they've made substantial improvements to the game's performance, but this is Unreal Engine 3 we're talking about here, so yeah. And that is pretty much everything I can think of. These are all the questions that I have generally seen asked, and all the topics that I feel really need to be covered. Elyon is a very highly anticipated upcoming MMO. This is a game that we have been waiting years to finally get our hands on. Now, while I do not think that this is going to be one of, if not the best MMORPG of 2021, I do definitely think it is worth taking some time to try out, if even just to get to experience it for the first time. I don't think this is really going to take my attention away from the MMOs that I play frequently, Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft, but at the same time, I feel like they don't really have to. It just needs to give me a reprieve for a little while. But this is my opinion, my impressions of the game and everything we know about it thus far leading up to its release on December 10th. What do you guys think? Are you looking forward to playing it? Let me know down in the comments below and let's talk about it. Anyway guys, that is it for me. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Someday soon, I'm gonna make it. Yeah, all hard work's gonna be worth it. Ooh, everyone who didn't believe it.